Okay, stream attempt number 2, and it looks like it's actually picking up my audio, which is fantastic. Okay, looks like we're going to be good this time. Miracles of technology. Okay, now we're going to take this stream link and we're going to put this one on Twitter and go try again. Bang. All right. And don't have to worry about this. And close. All right. So this should be working fine now. Big shout out to Tyler, who came into the stream and was like, yo, dummy, nobody can hear anything. And I think we got it fixed. Big thumbs up. Okay. All right. Titans have hired somebody. That's probably a good thing, given how their season came to an end. All right. Okay, let's go here in 5, 4, 3. Once more with feeling. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at Nerd Tees, and I'm going to rifle through the beginning of this stream because I've already done this once, and unfortunately, nobody could actually hear me. Welcome to the divisional round of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2022 NFL season and postseason. It looks like my audio is actually being picked up. So once again, that is a wonderful thing. So I'm going to fly through the stuff that I've already talked about because I got about 7 to 8 minutes into the stream and then realized that nothing was working correctly. So last week, 4-2 straight up, 2-3-1 against the spread, and 3-3 on the totals on Super Wildcard Weekend, which was an excellent weekend of football. And look, obviously wasn't perfect for me. I only got 6 games correct straight up. Little under 500 against the spread, although we did have the push in the Cincinnati-Baltimore game, and even money on the totals, off to something of a slow start, but still looking to move forward here for the rest of these playoffs, and obviously have a ton more opportunity to make some excellent picks and move up my personal ranking, my personal leaderboard, I guess, in my brain. I want to do better than I did last week, and that's what we're going to try to do this week. In the Bridgewater's finest pool, I moved down to 10th place out of 37, 15-15 of 22-52. It's a little over 67%. I brought in 48 of 66 points on Super Wildcard Weekend, which is a little over 72.5. I want to shout out West Coast Martin, who won the week outright on Super Wildcard Weekend, going 5-1 straight up, bringing in 60 of 66 possible confidence points. That's a clip of just under 91%. Excellent job, Martin. Anthony Simone remains the leader at 183, 92, and 2, 1586 of 2252, just under 70.5%. And as I mentioned before, Anthony Simone has built a 30-point lead in the pool, and with only 80 points remaining to be won, all but the top 12 in the pool are mathematically eliminated. But what that does mean is there's still 11 other people that could take the crown from Anthony Simone. So nothing is over quite yet in this pool and in this season. Obviously, there's still a ton to play for on the football field. There's a ton to play for with these picks as well. So we're going to get right to them. All of my results from last week, all of my picks for this week, information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool, information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page. All of that can be found in the description below, as well as the link to my great friends and sponsors at Nerd Tees. Now, nerdtees.ca, you know it. It's where you need to go to find dozens and dozens of incredible loose leaf tea blends and coffee blends now as well. You can find all kinds of incredible gifting options on nerdtees.ca Today's blend is Black Forest Cake, very quickly becoming one of my personal favorites. And if you use my promo code, which is BW Finest, you're going to save 15% at checkout. You're going to get free shipping in Canada on any order over $100. Or if you're one of my American listeners, you're going to get a great conversion rate, of course, on the US dollar. Nerdtease.ca, promo code BW Finest, save your 15%, get your free shipping, find yourself something to love, or find someone you love something to love. You can do it on nerdtease.ca. So this is the point basically in the audio version of the podcast where it's going to pick back up from the false start that we had earlier with the audio not showing up on the live stream version of the podcast. But now we've got that taken care of, and now it's time to talk about some divisional round football games. Could not be more excited that we are this deep into the postseason already. Again, coming off a great week of games on Super Wildcard Weekend. Really looking forward to what the NFL has in store for us this week. Obviously, a highly emotional game coming up in Buffalo. We will get there, but let's talk about these games. And we are going to start in Kansas City, where the Kansas City Chiefs, with the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, are going to play host to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who came up with a 31-30 ultimate come from behind victory against the Los Angeles Chargers on Super Wildcard Weekend, a game that they really had no business winning as far as I'm concerned, but that was due to the wild ineptitude of the Los Angeles Chargers. And it's not just the play caller, because earlier today, I believe it was the offensive coordinator and play caller, as well as the quarterback's coach, that got relieved of duties. Like, yeah, sure, the quarterback coach, that's definitely the problem. I'm all for the offensive coordinator getting fired. How Brandon Staley still has a job doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, that feels like the first thing that you do is just say, you know what, this experiment we don't think is working. We're going to go in a different direction. And that to me should have started with the head coach, but doesn't look like that's the way that they're going to go. So it is what it is. The Jacksonville Jaguars and Kansas City Chiefs come into this game both riding long win streaks. Jacksonville has won 6 consecutive games, including last week. The Chiefs ended the season on a 5-game win streak, playing some of their best ball of the season. So look, Jacksonville in the Super Wildcard Weekend in the first round, they moved the ball fairly well on the Chargers, but I think it was the defense actually that really stepped up and played a key role, especially in the second half. Despite the fact that they did give up 30 points, I mean, because of all the turnovers, the defense was put in no-win situations the entire first half of that football game. So, I mean, it doesn't shock me that even though the defense gave up 30 points, they're actually top 3 in terms of the, what was it, the 12 teams that played last week in terms of total defense. The defense did not give up a ton of yardage. I actually think their defense played a fairly good game, especially in the second half. So this defense, nothing to sneeze at, and they did move the ball fairly well on the Chiefs as well. Jacksonville is going to need every little bit of that to walk into Kansas City, take on a team that I believe was the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL this year, the number 1 total offense in the NFL this year, and actually fell just short of being a top 10 total defense. Everybody talks about the offense for the Chiefs, and with good cause, but the defense, I feel this season, was not given the credit that it deserves. This was a good defense this year in Kansas City. I believe the average margin of victory for Kansas City this year was 29-22. So you're talking about a full touchdown in terms of the average margin of victory. This is a better defense than people gave it credit for. Obviously, Kansas City coming into this game off of the bye. Now, they did win coming off their bye week earlier this season. I think they only won the game by 3, but were really heavy favorites going into that game. A win's a win, but 3 points, fairly close. Jacksonville, in their last 4 games, including the game last week, they're outscoring their opponents by a margin of 12. It's like the second best of any team remaining in the playoffs. That margin of victory, 12 points. It's 25-13, I believe, is the average score over the last 4 games. The Jags are playing excellent football and should not be taken lightly in this matchup whatsoever. I mean, that being said, the Chiefs are also playing some of their absolute best football of the season. They are average margin of victory in their last 4 games. I think it was 28-18. So you're talking about a double-digit margin of victory, almost as good as Jacksonville's. But when you have this Chiefs team that is built so immaculately well, if you're not if you're not playing at your absolute best and them coming into the game really struggling, it's going to be really, really tough to knock off a team like this. Jacksonville has probably the steepest test, I would say, of any team on in the divisional round. And I say that with, of course, all due respect to the Eagles, but the Eagles are also playing a division opponent that knows them very well. So I just think I think their mountain is that much larger because it's a team they don't necessarily always get to play. Should be pretty obvious which way I'm going with this one. Straight up, you gotta go. You have to go with Kansas City in this game. Like that team there's so many ways for that team to beat you, and there are so few avenues. It's such a narrow line to walk to try to beat that team. There's such a thin line to find the exact path to beat the Kansas City Chiefs on most weeks. That team is just they're so well coached. I mean, it's top down. It's everywhere. So you have to believe that the Chiefs are going to pull off this one. I love a stat right now in the chat from Matt, the NFL fanatic. Andy Reid, 27-4 for his career, coming off of a bye. That's nuts. That's crazy. That's such an incredible record. That's a dude. That is an incredible coach right there. That's a coach that is going to maximize that bye week to prepare for whoever the opponent might be. The fact that they get Jacksonville was a fairly mediocre road team this year, especially against the spread. Like I think there were 4 and trying to remember. I think they were under 500 away from home this year, but even against the spread, they were only 3-5 on the road. Or sorry, on the road as an underdog. Yeah, I think they were like 4-5 straight up, something like that. I don't think they're the road warrior team that's going to go in there and beat Kansas City. So give me the Chiefs straight up. Against the spread, the Chiefs are laying 8.5 points here as a home favorite. That's a fairly hefty line for a playoff game. Like 8.5 points, it's fairly big. It's not the biggest. Obviously, we saw last week, I think Buffalo was favored by 12.5 ultimately at kickoff, I think it was in most places. So, I mean, it's not the biggest we've seen, but 8.5 is a fairly substantial line. At home as a favorite this year, Kansas City only 2-4-1 against the spread as a home favorite. Obviously, they've gotten some big overblown home spreads. Jacksonville as a dog on the road, 3-5 against the spread this year. So neither one of these two teams lighting it on fire. I think I got to take the points with Jacksonville. The dog was 2-4 against the spread last week, despite the fact that home teams were 4-2. Like taking the points really paid off last week. It's paid off all season long. I think I'm going to have to take the points there on the Jags. Give me the +8.5 on Jacksonville. Total in the game set at 52.5 points. It is the largest total of the divisional round. The Chiefs only 8-9 to the over this year, despite that high-powered offense. Jacksonville 9-9, even money to the over this year. Kansas City only 2-6 to the over at home. Because again, you're getting big lines, big totals. A Chiefs game getting played in Kansas City, you're getting 50s probably every single week. And look, I said it from the top, that Chiefs defense is underrated. The Jags, they might only be 9-9 to the over. They are 6-3 on the road. So the road overs have been hitting for the Jags this season. But I don't think that supersedes a Kansas City team who should be in control of this game for a large part of it. Them only hitting 2 overs in 8 home games. I think we got to stick under on this one, even though the over was 5-1 last week. Let's go under 52.5 points in Kansas City, Jacksonville. Let's go Chiefs 27, Jags 21. Chiefs win. Give me the plus 8.5 on Jacksonville, and I'll take the under on that 52.5 points. So let's see here. We got quite a bit going on in the chat. Half Moon in there says, "Hey, Justin, editing and listening. I like it." Keebs only went 1-3 last week. Not great, not great. You'll rebound though. You're good. Andrew, I agree with Jacksonville. I've been saying it all year long, as you know. Absolutely. Keebs, I think the NFL wants that neutral site game. They may very well. The Kansas City Mahomes the second. Kansas City Bills in Atlanta is happening. Andy, the stat about Andy Reid, 27-4 off the bye. Half Moon chipping in the Jags, 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games. Keep saying I got the Jags at +9. Excellent. Matt asks the question, thoughts on the NFL allowing the Chiefs and Bills to sell tickets for the neutral site AFC title game? So I think that's probably a logistical thing that does look a little more sinister than they probably mean for it to be. On the surface of it, it looks like, oh, they're allowing you to sell these tickets, so they're predetermining that that's what the game is going to be. And I get it. I totally understand. I think it's more a logistical thing than anything else. I'm sure they've got 101 different alternatives for ways to get around that if that's not the way that it winds up. Keeps chipping in, NFL wants their bowl game. Maybe that's true. You know what? Maybe all of it is true. Like I said a few weeks ago, earlier this season, that I was like, you know what? I'm just willing to admit at this point that the NFL might be a fugazi. So you know what? I maybe that is the case. Maybe they do want that bowl game. Maybe that's the case, but I think it's more a logistical thing than anything else. Tyler, I don't know anything about football. I'm just here to be annoying. I wouldn't have it any other way, sir. And thank you for helping me with my my tech support issue. Let's see. I hate it. Neutral site AFC title game. Whoever has the better record gets home field. Yeah, it's the neutral site is definitely not the. This is why I advocated for them to call it a tie. Should have just called it a tie. Anyway, we'll move on from that. They didn't do it that way. They chose to do it their own way. C'est la vie. Let's go to Philadelphia now, where the Eagles are going to play host to their division rivals from New York, the New York Giants. Philly obviously coming into this game off of their bye, having wrapped up the number 1 seed in the NFC. The Eagles, a top 5 total offense, a top 5 total defense from the regular season. Obviously, Philly had an incredible season to get that number 1 seed in the NFC. The Giants coming off of an impressive 31-24 victory against the Minnesota Vikings last week on the road. They're going to be coming into this one. This will be their 3rd consecutive road game, which has been a thing. It's been a thing all season long. I've talked about it all season long. Those multiple road games in a row can really start to wear on a team. Now, on the plus side, the Giants have been playing this kind of football, this kind of underdog, not like away from home. They didn't play away from home any really much more than anybody else, but this underdog mentality, it feels like the Giants have been playing playoff football since about week 4. I don't know, like maybe that's weird. Maybe it's weird to look at it that way, but it just feels like they've played this entire season in these kinds of situations with this kind of mentality. So even though it is their 3rd straight road game, I think they might be a little more comfortable in that context than maybe some other teams. Giants in their last 4 games, including the game last week, outscoring opponents by a margin of 6, 27-21. The offense is going well. The defense is playing well. And Philadelphia, interestingly enough, okay, so the Eagles, they outscored opponents on average all season by 8 points, 28-20. The offense was real good. The defense was real good. In their last 4 games, and I can hear the argument starting already, but let me at least say the numbers and then we'll talk about it. In the last 4 games, they've been outscored on average by a single point, 24-23. Now, what Eagles fans will immediately jump in and say is it was towards the end of the season. A couple of those games didn't really matter. Although, look, there was still a chance right up until week 16, week 17, that maybe they might not get that number 1 seed. And granted, there was a little bit in there where you had some guys that were injured. And all I'm saying is the numbers say, and numbers can say a lot of things, but these numbers say they were in fact outscored on average in their last 4 games by a single point. Does that matter a ton? Probably not. But when you look at how some of the other teams were playing coming into the playoffs, I'm just saying. I think despite the fact that the Giants actually had a pretty impressive performance there against Minnesota last week, they're the number 2 total offense in these playoffs so far. So number 2 out of 12, and the total defense, number 4 out of 12. That was a solid performance on all sides of the ball in that game against Minnesota, a game where they were the underdogs. They were on the road. They weren't necessarily, quote unquote, supposed to win with how good Minnesota was all season long. That was a great performance on both sides of the ball. And I think the Giants should feel really, really good about that. Now, whether that's enough to step to the Philadelphia Eagles after the season that the Eagles have had, it's tough to say. The Eagles played this Giants team. What was it? It was the last week of the season, wasn't it? Wasn't that the Eagles' final game? And I think they beat them in that game. So they've played each other relatively recently, which should help, I think, both of those teams. This is a tough call. The upset, this is one situation where the upset is definitely calling to me. But man, that third straight road game, that's what really holds me. This really hammers me right there. Is that third straight road game is bad news. It's really bad news. Boy. Like I have a pick. Like I'm sitting here kind of like I'm struggling with it. I have a pick. But whether it's the pick I want to stick with is the real question mark here. Whether I want to stick with it or whether I want to go for it. I went for it last week and it paid off. Let's have some fun. Let's just have some fun. The New York Giants go into Philadelphia and upset the Philadelphia Eagles, the number 1 seed in the NFC, one and done. That's a very good football team over there. Very good on both sides of the ball. Feels like Daniel Jones has got something special going with this Giants team, though, doesn't it? Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll, just feels like that Giants team. Saquon Barkley making his playoff debut, and what a playoff debut it was. Let's take the G-Men to get the upset, go into Philadelphia, and beat a division rival. Now, one way or the other, on the line, the pick's not changing. The pick has always been Giants plus 7.5. I like the pick's always been Giants plus 7.5. The Eagles, as a favorite at home, are 6-3. They've had a very good season in Philadelphia, 6-3 against the spread. The Giants, as dogs on the road, are 7-1 against the spread. The dogs were barking for the Giants all season long. Like they were covering numbers left, right, and center. Little numbers, big numbers. It didn't matter. The Giants were finding ways to cover, even if they weren't finding ways to win. So this pick was always going to be Giants plus 7.5. Total here is 48.5. The Eagles are 10-7 to the over this year. The Giants just under 500 at 8-9-1. The Eagles 6-3 to the over at home this year. I think I got to grab this over, and I think this gets pretty comfortably into the 50s. So I feel fairly comfortable about going over 48.5 points in Philadelphia, New York. Let's go Giants 28, Eagles 27. The Giants get a Saquon Barkley touchdown, let's say in the last 2-3 minutes of the game, and that seals it. 28-27. Giants get the upset win, throw the NFC playoff picture completely on its head. Giants go into Philly and beat the Eagles. Let's see. If the Giants beat the Eagles, I'll rub it in with my boss, who is an Eagles fan. Oh yes, Andrew, absolutely. The shit talk has to 100%. That absolutely has to be there. Let's see. Dayball hands down coach of the year. Matt says, I think I probably agree with that. There's other ones that are in there, like Doug Peterson certainly deserves a lot of consideration there. Keeb says, I wish he was still a Bill. I'm not sure which one. Not sure who were you talking about there, Keebs? I wish they were still a Bill. Giants covered a 16.5-point spread. Let's see. Giants best against Dayball. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, that makes sense. Sorry about that. Let's see. I had Jalen Hurts in fantasy football at my work, and I was one and done in the playoffs. That sucks. Sorry about that, Andrew. That's not great. New York Giants 2007 familiar. Could be getting those vibes there, right? All right. Halfway home, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Buffalo, where the Bills are going to play host to the Cincinnati Bengals. And this just feels like this is the game that should be taking place. You know what I mean? The game that never ultimately got to get finished, of course, due to the circumstances around Damar Hamlin. Now they go to Buffalo, and this is going to be an emotionally charged game. They're talking about having Damar Hamlin in the building. I don't know how. Maybe this is just me being a wiener, but I don't know how comfortable I feel with that. Like, here's a guy that just went through like a significant heart issue, and you're talking about having him in the building surrounded by 60, 70, like however many thousands, tens of thousands of people in your own building where emotions are going to be running high. It's a different experience watching it on television and not necessarily being there. Like, this still only happened like a few weeks ago. Like, I don't know exactly how comfortable I feel with that concept. I mean, look, if no doctor is going to step in front of him and say like, hey, hang on, like let's not do this yet. If that's not going to be the case, then I guess everything's fine, and maybe I'm just being weird about it. But I don't know how I feel about that, where it's, matters of the heart, but in a medical sense. Maybe is that me being weird? I don't know. It might be. If it is, I own it. Both of these teams riding significant winning streaks coming into this game. Cincinnati, a 9-game winning streak. Buffalo, an 8-game winning streak. So obviously these two teams playing their absolute best football. They finished the season strong. That's continued for both of these teams through into the playoffs. Cincinnati, a 24-17 win over division rival Baltimore last week. Buffalo holding on for a division win of their own, 34-31 against the Miami Dolphins. Cincinnati, their offense really didn't look all that great in that Baltimore game, did it? Like it took a bizarre play on their own goal line for them to get the difference in that football game. Like that's the very definition of escaping with a win is exactly what Cincinnati was able to do in that game last week. And again, Buffalo was in tough for a lot of that game. It came down to the wire against, a third, like in both of these cases, these teams up against second/third string quarterbacks. And it was not an easy path for either one of these football teams to get to this game. But now they're here. Obviously, emotions are running high. This is a matchup of two of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, a matchup of two of the elite overall teams, two great coaching staffs. Like it's there's all kinds of interesting storylines going into this one. But again, Cincinnati, I didn't think their offense looked great. As a matter of fact, in terms of total offense, they are the 11th of 12 playoff teams after the first week. So they were the second worst total offense on Super Wildcard Weekend. They were about middle of the pack in terms of total defense. Buffalo top 4 in total offense, and Buffalo allowed the fewest yards of Super Wildcard Weekend, the number 1 total defense on Super Wildcard Weekend. So that defense definitely having themselves an excellent game. Look, again, it's both of these teams that had tight games last week, played exceptionally well down the stretch, long winning streaks for both of them. Something in this matchup has got to give. And that something is usually the intangibles. It's usually like we talk about it being a game of inches, and sometimes those inches are mental. Like sometimes they're not physical inches at all. It's the mental edge. It's the edge of the intangibles, the immeasurables. And between these two teams, I think the team that has that is the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Bengals have the Bills number. I think it continues. I think there's something about this Bengals team that for whatever reason, the Bills do not have the penicillin for it yet. They haven't figured it out. Maybe they figure it out this week. But as of right now, I really like the Cincinnati Bengals in this spot, even though I have questions about that offensive line, and we'll have to see if the offense rebounds from the performance that it had last week. They're not playing a division game this time. I think they do rebound. I'm going to take the Bengals here. I like Cincinnati in the upset. Give me the Bengals on the road in Buffalo to beat the Bills. On the line here, Buffalo is favored by 4.5 points at home. I totally get it, but this feels like a hedge as well, especially with how the underdogs are just rolling this season. So Cincinnati plus 4.5, I'd be on that one way or the other. I like them to win outright, so I'm more than happy to take the points. Total in the game set at 48.5, which is identical to the Philadelphia New York game. This feels like an over to me as well, but that's a play on the playoffs as a whole because both of these teams are under 500 to the over this year. Buffalo's only 7-10, Cincinnati 7-9-1. It's worth mentioning 5 of Buffalo's 7 overs have come at home. So they definitely score more points in their own building. And since then, I don't have them winning the game, the other team scoring more than they do. I think this game gets into a low 50. So give me over 48.5 points in Cincinnati, Buffalo. Let's go Bengals 27, Bills 24. Cincinnati wins. Give me the plus 4.5 on the Bengals and give me the over on the points. I think all the overs covered last week. The over was 5-1 last week. Stephen, the one game that stayed under was Cincinnati and Baltimore because their number was what was their number? Their number was 42.5, and they got to 41. So they stayed under unless the number dipped significantly before kickoff. The rest of them all went over. So I'm sure that there were some books where maybe the number was like 40 and a half or something like that, and it might have snuck over that way. Oh, kickoff was 40 and a half. There you go. So yeah, so technically based on the kickoff lines, uh then everything did go over. Most of the lines that I saw stayed at 42 and a half. So I'm still crediting that as an under technically, but again, some books definitely could have done 40 or 40 and a half, and then it would have snuck over. Either way, it was like pretty darn good number. Like it was right there. All right, our final matchup of the divisional round sees the Dallas Cowboys hit the road for the fourth straight time, as this time they go into San Francisco to take on Mr. All of a sudden relevant Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers, who are playing just some incredible football. That offense is immaculate. Like that offense is incredible. The sheer fact that, and it's not just based on the point total that they put up last week against a Seattle team whose defense has been this year, it's the fact that over like the last 4 games, they're averaging like 38 points a game. Like this offense is insane. And I don't think that there are a lot of defenses in football that have the antidote, that have the answer for what the Niners are doing on offense right now. Dallas, like I mentioned, this is their fourth straight road game, which again, we talked about it. It's bad news. It's not great. This is a top 3 offense based on what they've done so far in the playoffs from the game last week. Got middle of the pack in terms of total defense at number 7. San Francisco on an 11-game winning streak, a wild winning streak that extends beyond the double digits, the number 1 total offense so far in the playoffs, and number 5 in terms of the total defense. So both sides of the ball were clicking rather well for the Niners last week. Last 4 games, outscoring opponents by an average of 38-23. Just crazy. Just insane, the offensive output that they've been able to put up. Dallas outscoring opponents by an average of 4, but their games have certainly been quite a bit closer. Andrew dropping in the chat saying if Dallas loses to San Francisco, I'd love to see a Stephen A. Smith reaction on it. Oh, don't worry. ESPN will have that everywhere, and it'll just be his big stupid face in a cowboy hat, because it's the same reaction he gives every time the Cowboys lose. Anyway, it is what it is. That's Stephen A. Smith for you. How do you not go with the Niners in this game? Like, I'm not sure how you don't go with San Francisco in this one. If you're a Cowboys homer, I get it. I totally understand. But boy, I don't know how you don't like just ride this Niners train until the wheels fall off of it, because they're just doing something special, and they're just running over everybody. They're doing it offensively. They're doing it defensively. They're doing it with special teams. They're doing it with coaching. They're doing it with I found out something interesting today, because we were talking about in a different group. We were talking about quarterbacks, and we were talking about highly paying quarterbacks, and about how like the 4 highest paid quarterbacks this year, their teams didn't make the playoffs. In terms of like, oh, it was almost like it was a hey, don't pay your quarterbacks kind of thing, because the highest paid quarterbacks, their teams didn't make the playoffs, which is true. The top 4 quarterbacks in terms of the contract value, the AAV for this year, none of their teams made the playoffs. Green Bay almost did, but none of their teams made the playoffs. That's true. And then I was looking, and I was trying to like draw a dichotomy here where it's like, well, okay, but 3 of the quarterbacks that are in the $40 million club did make the playoffs, and all 3 of those teams are in this divisional round. But then I was saying you can contrast that with what San Francisco is doing with, and I wanted to say their 3rd string quarterback, but I happened to be on Spot Track going down the list of quarterback salaries. Brock Purdy is their 4th highest paid quarterback. Everybody remember Josh Johnson? Because I certainly didn't. Josh Johnson's making $1.2 million or something this year. So Brock Purdy is literally their 4th most expensive quarterback just on that team. And look at what he's doing. It's incredible. It's almost unprecedented what Brock Purdy has been able to do and what this Kyle Shanahan offense has been able to do. It's crazy. It's just completely just, it has to be unprecedented. It has to be very close to being unprecedented. Like that's something for a research department. When was the last time a team's fourth highest paid quarterback was leading them to playoff wins? It's insane. Anyway, I'm obviously very firmly on the 49ers in this game. Let's take San Francisco to get the win over Dallas. On the line, most of today, this game was a -4. It has slipped now to -3.5 for San Francisco, and I am more than happy to lay that -3.5 on a San Francisco team that is 8-1 against the spread at home this year as a favorite. Now, Dallas is 2-1 as a dog on the road, so they've converted a couple of times in this spot, but that's a really tasty number on arguably the best team in football. So you got to lay that 3.5. I love that. Absolutely love it. Let's lay the -3.5 on the Niners. Total in the game here set at 46.5 points, our smallest total of the week. Both of these teams are at least 500 to the over this year. San Francisco is 10-8. They're also 6-4 to the over at home this year. It's such a beatable number, especially with the offensive explosion that we saw on Super Wildcard Weekend. I think you got to go over on this one. Over 46.5 points in San Francisco. Dallas, let's go Niners 30, Dallas 24. Like, I think this is still a competitive football game, but I'm more than happy to grab those numbers on the Niners. Niners win, Niners cover, and give me the over on the points. There you go, folks. Those are my picks for the divisional round of the 2022 NFL playoffs. We'll go over them here with you one more time. I've got Kansas City beating Jacksonville 27-21, taking +8.5 with the Jags in a game that stays under 52.5 points. I got the New York Giants upsetting the Philadelphia Eagles 28-27, taking the +7.5 with New York in a game that goes over 48.5. I've got the Cincinnati Bengals over the Buffalo Bills 27-24 in Buffalo. So I like the +4.5 on Cincinnati in a game that goes over 48.5 points. And I got the San Francisco 49ers beating the Dallas Cowboys 30-24. Give me the -3.5 on San Francisco and over 46.5 points. Ladies and gentlemen, those are my picks for the division round games. Thank you so much for tuning in. We false started here at the beginning of the stream, but I feel like we finished strong. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at Nerd Tees. By the way, if you've been watching the movie awards, the 9th Lineal Justin and Tyler Movie Awards, I hope you've been enjoying those videos. Still 2 more videos to come. One of them comes tomorrow, and then the finale, our top 10 best movies of 2022. That video is coming on Friday. Thank you so much for your support on the movie awards. Thank you so much for your support, of course, on the NFL Pick Show, season 11 of this show. We will see you again for the AFC and NFC Championship games. Maybe neutral site, maybe not. We'll have to see. Thank you for stopping in and enjoy the games this weekend. All right, folks. That is the stream. Those are the picks. What do you like? What do you not like? Let me know. It's funny because when I did the Super Wildcard Weekend show, everybody hated the Miami +9. Everybody seemed to really not like taking the points there with the Dolphins. to the point that I actually, when they officially announced that Skylar was going to start at quarterback, I was like, okay, it's time to swap this. So I officially changed the pick. By that point, it was Buffalo minus 12.5, and I took it, staying with the under, and barely got anything on that game because it wound up being super close. The over hit very comfortably. So maybe that's a lesson to me. Just your gut tells you something for a reason. Like, just stick with it. Go with it. See what happens. Should have stuck with it. Oh well. What are you gonna do? Let's see. What have we got in the chat? Uh, ba, 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 ba. Let's see. I agree with Cincinnati. However, if the Bengals beat the Bills in Buffalo, he's going to wear his I Love Breakfast shirt. Excellent. Jim Schwartz goes from Cleveland to Tennessee. I saw that. I have a nice future on the Niners to win the NFC. Very cool. I like that. I like it. Only 5 of 15 quarterbacks that are making $25 million or more this year made the playoffs. Excellent research there, Matt. I like that. Let's see. Nice research. Oh, on the Brock Purdy thing. Yeah, absolutely. Jerry Jones won't like that pick. Jerry Jones knows where to find me. We all have Twitter. Looking forward to the movie awards. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's a passion project. It's a labor of love. I enjoy it. I've still got Kansas City to win the AFC for $600. My Green Bay $500 lost. Thanks, Detroit. Hey, you take it up with your team. That was your team's fault. That's your team doing bad things to my team. So you take it up with them. But it's funny because my preseason, my Super Bowl pick was the Chargers beating Green Bay. So only one of those teams actually made the playoffs, and neither one of them won a playoff game. So didn't exactly go well. Andrew asks, where is DeAndre Hopkins going? Okay, this is a good one to get us out of here on. So DeAndre Hopkins, what is D-Hop? Is D-Hop 30, 31? Somewhere around that age, maybe 29 at best. This is a guy that's going to try to go somewhere and win a championship. So I could see him maybe going to see, it doesn't even preclude him from going somewhere where you already have like 2 established wide receivers. Like you can pull a Julio Jones and try to like be that third receiver, that third receiving option, and still make some noise and go for a championship. So it doesn't totally preclude him from doing if he's just purely ring chasing. If you're talking about a place for him to go long term, he'll be 31 in June. Okay. Boy, that's a really good question. I could see him. Here's one. Here's an interesting thought. What about the Chargers? Both of their receivers, their top end receivers, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, have both shown themselves to be injury prone. They have some good young receiver talent under them, but think about the 1-2-3 punch that gives the Chargers. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, D-Hop. That's dangerous when you've got a quarterback like they have. Like that would be scary. I'm not saying he should go there, but Justin Herbert can do some dangerous things with a DeAndre Hopkins in his receiving core. What I think might be more likely, I mean, I could see him go to Dallas. I could see that being a possibility. Probably not Philly. I'm thinking of like contending teams. If Aaron Rodgers wants to play another year, he's more than welcome to come to Green Bay. New England could be a possibility. Buffalo might be a possibility. Again, we're just trying to think in terms of ring chasing. Depends how much they'd have to pay Lamar, but what about Baltimore? Like lining him up with Rashad Bateman once he's healthy again? That could be kind of nasty. There's a lot of good options for where he could go. And I'm sure I've probably picked none of them. He'll wind up in Chicago or something. Like he'll just wherever he signs with, it will be baffling. Like it will be straight up baffling. Here's a thought. What about Detroit? They seem like they've committed to Jared Goff. That's a good-looking offense in a lot of ways. What a compliment to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Crazier things have happened. I agree, Andrew, that Detroit needs pieces on the defensive side, but they've also got pieces on the defensive side that can play some ball. There's a lot of options. A lot of interesting possibilities. Minnesota? I'm just trying to make my own life miserable at this point. There's a lot of places D-Hop might wind up. That's a good question. I like the conversation. I'll turn that around for anybody that still happens to be watching the stream on the VOD or live here. Where do you think D-Hop is going to wind up? Martin, I might be a wuss and go for the home teams, but maybe I might take the Giants. Jalen is so dangerous. I don't see the Niners losing. It's going to take a special performance by Dallas for the Niners to lose. The only team that was better than the Dallas Cowboys in terms of turnover differential this season was San Francisco. Like Dallas was plus 10, San Francisco was plus 13. Like they were or plus 12 or something like that. They were the only team in the NFL that was actually more opportunistic than Dallas was. So it will take the upset of all upsets, I think, for the Niners to lose. All right, folks, we're going to let you go with that one. Mull that question over. Toss it in the comments below. Let me know where you think DeAndre Hopkins might end up. I think we're going to see a lot of player movement this offseason. It's just, I don't know. It's just kind of what I'm feeling. So I think it's not just going to be D-Hop. I think it's going to be a lot of folks. I'd say Detroit or Kansas City. That was Raheem Journey saying Detroit or Kansas City. I think Detroit's kind of a low-key interesting possibility there. D-Hop definitely not Houston. Yeah, fair enough. He like you know what? On second thought, I trust Davis Mills. Let's go back to Houston. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Brady going to Vegas to reunite with Josh McDaniels. Wouldn't that be interesting? Anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. Thank you so much for watching the stream. Again, the second go of the stream. Thank you so much for all the support all year long. Enjoy the football games this weekend, folks, and we will see you again for the AFC and NFC Championship games. The stream will be at probably the same time next week, but keep an eye out next weekend for me to make an announcement on that. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the games. We'll see you next time.